and welcome to the Dynamic Entrepreneurs. I'm your hostess, Jenny Edwards, and today I have an amazing guest, Wendy Hart. Hello, Wendy.
Hi, Jenny. It's so nice to be with you. This is going to be so much fun.
Yay, I'm so glad that you're here. Yay. And if you aren't familiar with Wendy, she's an international speaker and coach, and she's the creator of Procrastination and Overwhelm Cure, a complete
Yes.
system that compels you to follow through. And if you have a business, make more money. So perfect for the topic today. Her promise is to increase your follow through by 3 times or more in 3 months or less, using a third or less of the effort that you were using before, and all without using willpower. So she has
Ta-da.
25 years of experience in human behavior sales and psychology. So I'm super excited because you have, Wendy, you've coached thousands of people on 6 continents to reduce the
Yep.
overwhelm and get past whatever barriers that are causing them to get drained or stuck. I'm sure you have some incredible insights to our audience today. And tell us more about what you do.
Oh, I'm happy to share them. Well, I guess what makes sense is to go back to how this started, because necessity is the mother of invention, right? And I was the most stuck individual you ever met in your life. So that's how this all came to be. I was raised in a household with really brilliant, but sadly mentally ill parents. And it was dysfunctional. It was too colorful for the Jerry Springer show if you live in America. So it was like being raised by wolves. And my brother and I were always in very literal fear for our lives. So what happened was that created a nervous system in each of us that was hypersensitive, hyper-aroused, and attuned to threat, which all humans have to some degree, a little or a lot, but this is very intimately connected to procrastination and overwhelm. So I was the worst of the worst of the worst in that, continuum. But as a little girl, thankfully, I was born with a lot of drive and a lot of curiosity and natural gifts as a teacher. And I thought, if I ever make it out of this house and I live through this, I'm going to figure out what lets people thrive and be happy. And then I'm going to tell everybody that wants to know about that. So growing up, I went on a quest, right, to learn how to heal myself. And that's how the whole system came together. And in college, while other kids were going to parties, I was in the library reading psych abstracts, trying to figure out how to get over my panic attacks and flashbacks and stuff like that. And I studied brain chemistry and neuroscience and psychology and personal development, and nothing worked. Nothing worked, but little bits worked. So nothing whole cloth worked. No system that I tried had an answer that helped me, but lots of little pieces worked. So I found out I was good at being a cherry picker. And I put those together in a new recipe, which resulted in this thing now that lets people monetize their message, lets people follow through so well. And it's very, very counterintuitive. It's the opposite of nearly all the other productivity gurus in the space. So what I first like people to know is that what you've been doing up until now to get unstuck probably is usually making it worse. So right now, it's good to know that procrastination just isn't anybody's fault. So, yeah, right there, just like you're, there's there's a sigh of relief that happens, and the nervous system lets go, and that's good because it's not actually your fault. Everybody's just missing a little bit of information that has to do with the way our brain and our nervous system speak with each other. It's not about your character or being lazy. It's not like what those well-intentioned nuns or parents said to you. It's not that. And so there's such a good new sensibility about how to go about it, but it's the backdoor way.
So why what actually causes procrastination? Why
Yeah.
does it happen?
Well, it's very funny. It's kind of a design of humans, which we don't know and nobody ever told us. But again, because it's about the way that your brain and your nervous system are speaking with each other, we're all 21st century humans running around with caveman era circuitry. Like that stuff has not caught up. It's an operating system that we never got the manual for. So back in caveman days, if the saber-toothed tiger was running at him, he needed to run really fast. You didn't have time to stop and think about stuff. It was an automatic survival response because everything defaults to having the body stay alive. So here in modern days, your top brain, I affectionately call that your thinking brain, your prefrontal cortex, can't tell the difference, obviously, between a real and imagined threat. And our nervous system is wired to be sensitive to things. So how this works in a very 10-second primer is that if listeners can just call up a picture of their brain right now, we usually think of one big gray squiggly brain, but it's not that. It's actually 3 smaller brains stacked on top of each other. And so it's the way that they're functioning, right? So the bottom 2, your brain stem, that translates everything you see, hear, smell, touch, taste into what they call the 4 F's: food, fight, flight, or fooling around, right? Like one of those things. That would be sex, right? So 4 things. So it translates everything into that. And that's pretty primitive. And the middle one, which is the seat of your emotions, like run toward pleasure or run away from pain, that's all that one knows is pain and pleasure. So that's its languages. And then there's alarm and alarm. And most people have heard of the amygdala. You never need to know how to spell that or anything. But this alarm, we discount. Yeah, phew. We think, well, my top brain runs the show. I'm smart. I can balance my checkbook. I'm, take charge woman. The biggest piece of information we're missing that creates procrastination and overwhelm is that the bottom 2 brains are the gatekeepers, period, 1,000% of the time, end of story. So every single thing you see, smell, touch, taste, interact with, the information goes to the bottom 2 brains first, and they decide with those primitive little languages, do we let it go through or do we not let it go through? Nope, warning, warning, this is a threat. The alarm kicks off, a chemical cascade happens, and this is in a nanosecond. So you end up with the feeling of dread in the pit of your stomach, and you don't want to go do that thing you wanted to do. You had an idea about doing something, but whenever you feel resistance, whenever you are procrastinating, you can trust that your alarm got tripped and danger is connected in the system, which makes no rational sense. Your top brain knows that it's not dangerous. But when the alarm goes off and the chemistry happens, your top thinking brain is in jail. And once your brain is in jail, all bets are off. And this is why we procrastinate, in a very truncated little way to explain that. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so your brain's in jail.
Yeah.
And what exactly does that mean?
Okay. So again, we go back to the caveman. And when the caveman, when the saber-toothed tiger was running at him, the first thing that happens in an instant is the blood leaves your top brain. Just leaves the top brain because it needs to go to the parts of the body that let you run fast. So this is an instantaneous thing. And when that happens, you can't think straight anymore. You don't have access to how smart you were an hour ago when the blood leaves your top brain. I know most of us were never taught this. And if you don't believe me, because right now there are a lot of skeptical people thinking, what is she talking about? Think of this. Think of a time that you were in some social situation and you felt really great. Like, yeah, I'm confident. I got it going on. I'm on top of my game. And then some jerk, yeah, exactly, right? Some jerk came up and surprised you with a really rude remark. And you're standing there stammering and your jaw, drops, and you can't think of anything to say to that schmuck. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
That moment, like one minute you were just great, and the next moment you're speechless, and you also feel like you can't even believe it happened. And then you leave and you go to bed and you chill and you wake up in the middle of the night and your eyes pop open and you're like, oh my God, I know exactly what I should have said to that son of a gun. And I'm such a loser because why couldn't I think of it? Well, that was cortical inhibition. That's the blood leaving your brain because your alarm felt threat when the guy came up and said something rude. And what's happening in our lives is not that dramatic, but it is happening. The alarm, turns out, is getting tripped in little ways and big ways and all kinds of ways all day, which is why you wake up in the morning and you're clear and you can make a to-do list and you know what you're going to take actions on in your business today. And then you wonder, like, by 4 p.m, what has happened to me? The whole day went by. Why didn't it? And the most important part, because right now I know what people are thinking. They're like, well, what do I do about that? And how do I undo those triggers and what causes them? It's really important to know the biggest blessing I found. You don't ever have to unwind them. You don't need to know why because your triggers, Jenny, will be different than mine. The little unconscious ways that cause us to go a little stupid right? Cause us to feel dread in our tummy or the weight of the world on your shoulders. They're different for everybody, but they're pre-verbal, most of them. A lot of this happens in the womb. About 70% of how your nervous system is attuned has to do with what your mother's nervous system was like before you were born. It determines your attachment patterns, for example, about 70% of it. Then those early childhood experiences. So like they're weird things, right? In my house, my mother was also crazy, but she had this hyper arousal and she was afraid of bells. She was afraid of those old fashioned phones, like when you hear the ringtone, on those bells. Okay. So she'd be carrying me as an infant and the phone would ring and she would jump in the air with nervousness, and we entrain with each other. So there's also mirror neurons. So even if you're near somebody that's triggered all the time by something, your nervous system will learn that. So there's all these ways that we're constantly fighting, trying to willpower our way to make our stuff happen. We beat ourselves up, and sadly, when we beat ourselves up and judge ourselves, that's another set of chemicals that reinforce this losing pattern in our neural net. So thank goodness, as I said, we don't have to go understand how or why any triggers are there. You can just know, okay, here's the bottom line thing. If I'm dreading something, if I'm feeling resistance to doing something, if I feel a lump in my stomach, or I just don't want to do it, or I want to go scroll my phone for an hour, or I want to play video games and not do my thing, it means there's some level of threat. And bless you.
Thanks.
And we found a simple workaround with sneaky brain hacks. There's a lot of them. I got about 200 of them, but there's sneaky brain hacks that allow people to do this, to get into action and rewire their neural net so that this doesn't happen so often. And you can, over time, within about 3 months actually, teach that little alarm, that little amygdala, oh, that's not dangerous anymore. That's okay. And as soon as people retrain that alarm in that area, everything changes. The world is your oyster. Things that used to stop you completely all of a sudden are amazing. And I can tell you a little more about that as we go along.
Awesome. So let's see, we talked about willpower
Yeah.
and as being ineffective at overcoming procrastination. Why is that?
Well, it's not the most effective. We all know some people who model that well. Like it's a
Uh-huh.
small number of people with a little bit of a brain and personality difference who are
Mhm.
able to be like Gary Vee and just muscle through and take charge and push, push, push. But what I find, having worked with thousands of people, is that most people end up with secret shame about that. They think
Mhm.
they ought to be able to follow through in an infinite way. Like, think about it. If you tell the truth, don't you feel like if you were a good person, you just ought to have access to an unlimited amount of willpower energy every
Mhm.
day? Because
Yeah.
if you're a good person, right? Yeah, that's totally debunked by science completely. Because willpower energy, that kind of knitted brow focus, that thing, that's a top brain energy. It's not your bottom two brains. It's a top
Mm.
brain
Mm.
job. So if your top brain's in jail and the blood has left your top brain for a while or to some degree, you're trying to get out of jail, but the key's locked in there with you. You can't get it to the
Unlock it.
keyhole. You can't get out, right? So that's not the most useful. Now, some people are able to muscle through, but what I find is they only in certain contexts. So maybe they're able to make $1 jillion and they talk about like a Gary Vee style. I love him. He's a good guy. And he's able to do that, and he can't quite understand why everybody else can't do that. But he's got a different nervous system, right? And he's not triggered by that. But I have not yet met a client that didn't have it in some other area. Maybe they can power through because he doesn't have dread, perhaps, in the pit of his stomach when he goes to do money making things. There's all this confidence and ebullience. But maybe in another context, like relationships or talking to their kids or whatever, that
Mm.
triggers them. So this is a human thing. It's just that
Mhm.
when I said that procrastination is a design feature, it's because all of this is designed, the hardwiring is designed to be afraid of anything unknown, afraid of
Oh.
anything unknown. So, see, in caveman days, there weren't that many things that could kill you. There were a handful of predators that were the giant size that could eat you, and there were certain plants that would kill the tribe, and that was kind of it. But now it's the amount of unknown things, because we're bombarded with billions of bits of information and the internet. And there's this feeling, you know, that you have that feeling inside, like you want to get your emotional, or you want to get your life in basket empty so you could just like rest and relax. It's never going to happen. Like we're just, yeah, we're bombarded with signals that we can't even take in. And it's many, many times more intense than our grandparents' generation, say. So the amygdala is firing all the time. So people are feeling more stuck, more overwhelmed, and then more shamed about it because they think they ought to have unlimited willpower. I tell people it's like a bucket full. It's like a metaphoric bucket full. And social scientists have measured this. And they say you wake up every day with a metaphoric bucket full of willpower, and your size is different than my size, Jenny, based on what kind of day you've had, how much self-care, how much sleep have you had, how much stress have you been under, shrinks the bucket, shrinks, you know what I mean, more stress. All those things lead to, you know, smaller bucket. And then, so you start the day with the maximum amount. And every time you have to use this kind of energy, you know, oh my God, grab my kid back so they don't run out into the street, or, oh my God, we've got to figure out this project for work. You're using it up. So by the time it gets late in the day, when you actually have space, you carved out from 4 to 6 to do your thing, and your husband's going to go watch the kids or whatever it is, you got no juice left. So it's finite, and you've got a leaky willpower bucket. And so there are other strategies that are just better, that don't send the chemical cascade. They retrain your alarm. You're redoing your neural net for success. And it's so amazing and liberating when people find out that they can get into action without feeling ashamed anymore, and they can count on themselves. Confidence goes up, clarity goes up, self-possession, self-trust go up. There's a whole myriad bunch of effects that happen.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So do you have like specific examples of, you know, for people that have used your program and what has
Oh my
shifted
God.
for them, or how they've been able
Yes.
to like monetize their message based on that?
Oh my God. Yes. Thousands of them. So, just now, I mean, I taught people to tell me in numbers, right? Like tell me like
Uh-huh.
measure before and then how much by how much, right? So I remember there's a former client, Mary, who I just adore, who was very overwhelmed. She had a home-based business she was trying to run. She was a mom, and she just felt overwhelmed by the whole thing. And she'd never been able to get traction in years of trying after studying many personal development programs and her company's stuff. And and then she felt ashamed about it, right? So she started, and within within a matter of weeks, she was just so amazed because the whole burden fell off. So she used the sneaky brain hacks. She increased her follow through by 300%. This is within 90 days, and her sales by 1,000%. That's 10x inside 90 days. And all the shame and all the dread fell away, and all that sense of obligation and oh my gosh, and everything got better in her life, right? Really, because when you're not so stressed and mama's happy, then the whole rest of the family's happy. So
Mm-hmm.
we have many people. If people go to my site, they'll see so many. uh, they'll just see so many from here to 2 blocks away about, in people's own words, what kind of results they had. I had a woman come to a call one time, and she was just darling. She was maybe in her 70s, I think. Her name was Martha. And I usually start big live group calls with asking who's had a win that they'd like to share, you know, so we can give them some love. And she piped a very quiet voice, and she said, yes, this is Martha. I said, hi, Martha, what's your win? And she said, well, we had the paper shredder company come to the house today, or on Saturday, and they shredded 728 pounds of paper. I'm like, pardon me? Could you back that up? And she said, well, I've been a pack rat for all these years, and then my mother died, and my mom was in the family. She was a pack rat, and my mother was a pack rat, and we put everything in the garage, and then we had a business that we had to close, but legally we had to keep all the paper, and we had to sort through the paper without getting rid of it. And then when my mom died 20 years ago, we put all her stuff in the garage. So it's just been this shame place. Every day I would want to fix it, and every day she would commit that we're going to do something with that today, and every night she'd go to bed feeling bad about herself. And she said, so I used your tools, starting with just going in and picking one box and lifting the corner up, and prizing myself, hitting the button and creating the good chemicals that offset the dread chemicals, right? And she said, and I just started like that, and within a week it was just like, it was like a dream. It just was easy. And I found myself just going through it all. And it was very easy to somehow sort it all. Now we have our garage back, and the company came and 728 pounds of paper. And I was like, and it happens a lot. If this is, I'm hoping these pictures paint a good picture. I had another woman who came on a call, and she had shame because she ran a business out of her office, which was a 10-foot by 10-foot room in their house. But she had unbelievable shame, and she'd been in her business forever, but she confessed to us that she only had 3 feet by 3 feet to work in because there was crap piled up from floor to ceiling everywhere, and the whole mountain on the desk, and she could barely find the computer. It was just like, and she had such shame. We have such, our identities so tied to these things, because we feel so. For years she'd just been haunting herself, feeling like every night when she went to bed, tomorrow, so help me God, I'm going to clean up that office because I'm so ashamed. And then it wouldn't happen, and she walked around with the dread because of course, the alarm kicked in. So same. So I taught her, she got the cure, the procrastination and overwhelm cure, and she started using the sneaky brain hacks, which frankly are too easy and they feel like they're too small to count. And she started doing it, and after about a month, taking all the pressure off herself, her alarm got retrained, right? So she said, the weirdest thing happened. I got up on Saturday morning, my husband left the house to go play golf, and it was kind of like I was in a dream. We hear this a lot. It's kind of like I was in a dream. And I just walked into my office and I started doing the steps, and I just kept going. Because Wendy, you said you're not the police on this. You don't ever make me stop. And I just kept going as long as it felt good and it kept feeling good. And somehow I don't really understand it, but by 4 p.m, I had my whole office back. All the paper had either been filed or thrown away. All the stuff I didn't need was boxed away. It was beautiful. I had 10 feet by 10 feet again. And my husband came home from golf and he said, where are the aliens and what have you done with my wife? Like, what has happened here? Like, he couldn't imagine. So I have a book this thick of stories, and it makes me cry actually. If I'm having a bad day, I open that book and I look at all the emails from all the
people
thankful
you've
people going,
impacted.
well, yeah, because it's the opposite. It's just information we've been missing. Yeah. Wish we'd had it, but
yeah, awesome. Wow, some really valuable lessons in here, and I'm excited about those sneaky brain hacks.
yeah.
What do you want to share with our viewers today?
Well, I want to share one quick story. This is a tool, an actionable thing you can have right here for your unconscious mind, right? And then, because right now people want to punch me like, how does this work? How does this work? And it's beyond the scope of what we can share with each other in half an hour. But then we also put a very special package together, crazy over the top thing just for you and your listeners. That's only available for this week, gang. It's only available for 1 week following this summit, right? 7 days, and there's a deadline timer on it. So we have a crazy thing over there. That URL, so I don't forget to say it, is cureprocrastinationfast.com/JED for Jenny Edwards, JED, because that's the only place you'll find this. And it's 2/3 off the regular price of the whole program, plus like $1,400, $1,500 in bonuses. It's crazy. So this is just a very limited, you can't get it anywhere else on the internet, run, don't walk thing if it's something that you're wanting. But the story I want to give you, the tool I want to give to listeners right here is a great example, and it's speaking straight to your unconscious mind. So this will be something you'll never forget. So completely true story of a woman who was very out of shape, ill health, overweight, and she was in trouble. She'd been to a bunch of doctors who said, you've got to change this. You have to turn it around or you won't be here that much longer. But her problem was exercise was a tiger for her. Exercise was, she'd been to all the gym programs and failed. She tried everything. She even had a high-end treadmill in her house that she couldn't stand to even look at it. So thankfully, she went to another medical doctor who knew part of this science. And he said, all right, we're going to do something completely different. What's your favorite part of the morning? Because mornings are good. Mornings are helpful if you start your day well. She said, oh, it's easy. This is back when people, read more papers, right? She says, my first cup of coffee and my paper in the morning. He said, okay, we're going to do something new. I'm going to have you get up in the morning and have your first cup and read the paper while you stand on the treadmill, but do not turn it on. Just don't turn it on. And come back and talk to me in 2 weeks after you've done that every day. She thought this was pretty crazy, but she tried it. And at the end of 2 weeks, she noticed she could look at the treadmill without feeling sick to her stomach. So then he said, very good. Do the same thing again. Have your coffee and your paper, and then turn it on to the lowest setting for a minute. And then lowest setting and just 1 minute, and turn it off no matter what, and then go to work. Another couple weeks. So she did that. Then she advanced another minute for another couple weeks. And right here, people groan and roll their eyes. They're like, oh my God, it's baby steps, or it's some kind of, I can't remember the name of the aversion therapy, or no, it's not. But there is magic that's happening because the chemicals of pleasure mitigate the chemicals of dread completely in a physical way, kind of like if you were in chemistry class and you mixed an acid and an alkaline together, they cancel each other out. And it was slowly retraining her brain. And what happens is you don't have to wait 175 years to get your goal. There's a tipping point that happens inside these 90 days. And something happens, and all of a sudden, the growth curve goes straight up. And her alarm figured out that exercise was not dangerous. And all of a sudden, she went from a few minutes to very quickly running a mile a day, full on a mile a day, never stopped. She got totally healthy. It wasn't upsetting anymore. It was just easy. It was natural. And the most important thing that I'd like listeners to know is that she did not need to change her character. She did not need a personality transplant to do this, right? Her people looking at her before that for years might have judged her and said, oh, she just doesn't care. She let herself go. She just doesn't want it enough. That's all BS. All BS. You have all the motivation you need if it's a desire you really have, but the alarm is preventing it from happening and you missing a little bit of information. And when you get the information and you can retrain the alarm in that context, bam, all of a sudden she had everything she needed inside to just naturally be her best self. And that's what I find with this system. Entrepreneurs not only can monetize their message because it's so easy to follow through on the things and turn them into money. Most of us know what to do. We just can't get ourselves to do the things that would turn it into money, right? So that's that piece. But it just changes your world when you know that you can trust yourself, self-confidence, self-trust, self-esteem, and then it bleeds out into, so because I know you're a mama and you're going to be a mama and all these things, right? So for folks that have kids, it bleeds out into families. It's like kids start doing their homework and they even down to easy potty training. It's just insane how it all bleeds down. So I hope that has elicited enough curiosity that if people want to know more, they'll go to this very special offer. Again, it's only 1 week. We don't leave this out in the world forever, but go to cureprocrastinationfast.com/JED. It's going to take, there's a redirect there, so it's going to take a few extra seconds for that page to load. So just to be patient, and you can get the mother load there. That's the best offer
Mother
I've ever.
load. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much, Wendy. Wow. I've learned
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, I could talk about this stuff for eons because, like I said, I was the most stuck person on the planet, but it enabled me to now be really happy and thrive and impact people all over the world. And I know a lot of your listeners would like to make a big impact in the world too, and they've been feeling stuck. If they're feeling stuck around visibility or making money or old secret shame or panic, or there are myriad applications to this brain science. So I hope they'll get their hands on it.
Yes. So if you're watching, take action now and take advantage of this really special, amazing opportunity that Wendy has to offer. And it's time to, up level what you're doing, monetize, and get your message out there in a bigger way, moving past the shame and the fear and really taking the initiative to, take control of what's next and what's possible. So Thank you guys all so much for watching The Dynamic Entrepreneurs. And thanks again, Wendy, for all of your wisdom and your stories to share.
My pleasure. Thanks. Bye. Bye, Jenny. Bye, everybody.
Bye.